Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Happy So What Day. I hope you're having a great start to your week and you enjoyed a long weekend. I guess it's the unofficial kickoff to summer, even though it's not technically summer yet. We have about a month before we're in official summertime. But I hope you're enjoying the weather. I hope things are starting to, bloom where you are. Yeah, where I am, it's really not acting like summer yet, but I'm here for it. I'm ready for it. And I don't know about you, but my wardrobe for the summer is a lot of t-shirts, shorts, leggings, maybe even some capris. Keeping it easy, keeping it comfortable. So I'm going to share a project tutorial with you today that uh, is really about kind of dressing up a basic t-shirt, but also just giving a little creative spin on it. And it's a very simple project. And I'm going to share kind of the story behind it as well and why I decided to create it. I'm actually wearing it right now, but I'll show you some better photos and some close-ups and, of course, some photos at the sewing machine. So that's what we are going to focus on today. But I wanted to start off by mentioning our Germany trip, which is happening over the holiday season this year. So December, actually, I think these dates have changed just slightly. I think it's December 8th through 16th, if I'm not mistaken. So I put up the wrong image here, but it's around this time, and we will be headed to Germany and Austria with craft tours. This is a Sulky exclusive trip. So on this tour, not only will we be seeing all of the Christmas markets, and we will be going to a lot of the locations where The Sound of Music was filmed. We're going to have a lesson from a chef on how to make our own apple strudel. This is an amazing excursion. I've done it a few times actually, and we walk up a little mountain. It's not a crazy hike, but we walk up a little mountain and there's like a cave in it. And we go in this cave and we learn how to make apple strudel there in Austria. It's an amazing experience. But we will also be touring the factory where Sulky threads are made and manufactured. And this is never open to the public. So it's a really exclusive day trip, and it's really fascinating. I think that you will all really enjoy it. So check out this tour. I linked directly to it in the description of today's post. So just click on that little see more button, or it might just say more if you're watching on YouTube, and then the whole description will pop out. You'll find links to this tour. You will also find the link to our Greece tour. That's not it. Our Greece tour is happening in 2026, in May of 2026. Actually, it'll be around this time. Right after Memorial Day into the first week of June, we will be headed to Greece. And this is going to be an absolutely incredible trip too. So you could check out all of our tours by heading to the links in the description of today's post. And while you're, figuring out your travels for the summer, figuring out your travels for the holidays, maybe you can also start planning for next year and get on a payment plan with craft tours to make it a little bit easier to chunk out those payments and make your way to Greece with us. It's really a bucket list trip, and it's going to be amazing. So check all of those out. And speaking of travel, I hope that you are registered for our Quilted Cork Travel Set Summer Sewing Session. This session will be activated on June 10th. So in a couple weeks, you will have all access to the Summer Sewing Session pages where there are tons of videos. You get 2 patterns with purchase of this session. One for this beautiful full-size wallet and one for this e-reader tablet keeper. They're a matching set. Of course, you can make them out of your own fabrics, but we do have kits available at sulky.com for this beautiful ocean ombre cork set. We also have a postage stamp colorway that comes with a coordinating solid cork fabric used for all of the accent pieces. So the pockets and the handle and all of those good things. You also get some beautiful sulky thread to embellish with, as well as construct your projects. And then you get 2 turn lock closures. This is really, I think, what elevates these 2 pieces and makes them look really designery, using this high-end hardware in different finishes. So the ocean ombre comes with a nickel finish, and the postage stamp comes with an antique finish. And they're really easy to install, and you'll get a full video showing you how to install these hardware pieces. And then also the videos are chunked out so that when you have pockets of time to sew, you can really focus on a specific part of the projects. If you want to remake the wallet in a couple months using some different fabrics, let's say, you can head back to the session and just review that video. So once you register for this session, you have all access to it. It never expires. And you'll get those 2 patterns with purchase of the session. And they are designed by Ashley Huff of Ashley Huff Designs. You might also know her from the National Sewing Circle or National Quilting Circle. She was also an editor for Sew News Magazine and Creative Machine Embroidery back in the day. And she's just a really phenomenal quilter. She designs all kinds of handbags. She's done some designer knockoffs of Birkin bags. She's just a really, really great teacher as well. You'll really enjoy her videos during this session. So make sure that you are registered so that you can reserve your spot and get email reminders when this is available for viewing. Also, as I mentioned, you'll get those 2 patterns for the wallet and the tablet keeper. So, hi Dee, I see that you're on. Thanks for saying hello. Sharon says, I love both colors. Penny says, I couldn't decide, so I bought both kits. I don't know how anyone's going to decide. I fell in love with that ocean ombre and I just had to have it, but I also have the postage stamp as well. My kit arrived last week, so I am also ready to go. Kathy says the cork is so pretty. Love that. Okay. Esther says, back to our travels. Greece is phenomenal. We were there last summer with our family. I cannot wait to go to Greece. It has really been on my bucket list for so long, and I just cannot wait to experience it with some of you as well. All right, so what other lines of business do we have to talk about today? I think we're all caught up. So let's get to today's project, which is the Thanks a Lot tee. So you might be wondering, where did I come up with this? Okay, so it is truly almost an exact knockoff. And a lot of the times I like to change things up a little bit, make it my own, maybe put a different phrase on the t-shirt, something like this, so that it's not an exact replica. But I really went for it. It is a designer dupe copy of a t-shirt. I'm going to share with you how this all evolved. Okay. So I am a fan of celebrity chefs, and I follow them on social media, and I'm really inspired by, different recipes and things. I like to try a lot of new things. So I was scrolling and I came across this video with Giada De Laurentiis, and she's making a lovely lemony pasta. But I was not looking at the pasta, okay? I was looking at this t-shirt, and I was like, what the heck? It says thanks a lot. I love it. I was obsessed. And I was like, I have to have this t-shirt, right? So there's no links to her t-shirt in her post. It's all about the recipe, of course. And I was like, must have it. So Not only does it say thanks a lot in this cute little kind of rainbow uh arched, orientation, but it also has this contrasting stitching on the sleeves and the hem. All right, so I went searching for it because honestly, I was just going to buy it. I thought it's a simple t-shirt and I'm going for it. So I find it on neimanmarcus.com. I find it on motherdenim.com. Don't know where it originated between the two. Probably this site. But can you see what the price is? Now, they had a Memorial Day sale or something like this. The original price over here, can you see this? $135 for a t-shirt, everyone. $135. Like, what? What's happening? Then it's slashed in half at $67.50. All right. $67.50 is still a crazy amount of money to pay for a t-shirt. But it's super cute. I love it. I love the orientation of the lettering. I love the message. Now, I mentioned that this t-shirt has this contrasting stitching. It almost looks like a flat lock stitch along the sleeves and hem. So that has a little decorative accent to it. Also, the applique letters are done in a little bit different shades. So you could see the THA and the ALT. Those are in like one shade of red, and then the NKS and the O are in a different shade of red. But look, it is a basic t-shirt. Okay? It is a basic t-shirt on sale for $67.50. I mean, geesh, what a deal. No. I was like, we're making this. Okay? So, Barb says, this is why we sew. Exactly. All right. So, I went and got a basic t-shirt. It was $7. Okay? And then I can get the style of t-shirt that I want. I don't love like a crew neck that I feel like I'm choking all day. Or not a crew neck. What's it called? Just a basic t-shirt. I like to have it a little bit more open. Maybe you like a V-neck. This way you get to decide the style of t-shirt that you want to wear. All right, so I started with that. Esther is saying, where did you find your t-shirt? I got it on Amazon, honestly. It's just a basic t-shirt, and you can decide how thick you want your t-shirt to be, right? So mine is rather thin, so I can wear it over the summer. I don't feel like stifling hot. And then I needed, of course, the fabric for the letters, right? So when I'm doing applique on a t-shirt, I like to use a similar fabric as the t-shirt. So my appliques are done out of a knit fabric. So just so happens that I was kind of going through my kids' closets. I like to do this before the summer starts because they want new clothes for the summer, and then they want new clothes for the new school year, right? And they're just growing like crazy still. And so I go through all their closets, get rid of everything that doesn't fit, everything that they're not wearing. And I happened to find 3 red t-shirts. They were actually like Christmas themed t-shirts. And, my daughters are going to middle school now. I know, help me. They're going to middle school now. And I found a t-shirt that was like a size 5'6" in one of their drawers still. A 5'6". So I took this red t-shirt, and that's what I used for my applique. You could certainly go out and purchase pretty much like an 1/8 of a yard of a knit fabric. A lot of the times too, knit fabrics are extra wide. So they're not going to be 44 inches wide like a quilting cotton. They're usually 58 and maybe even 64 inches wide. So even if you get an 1/8 of a yard, just make sure the size of your letters, how tall you want them to be, is, what you're purchasing across the width of the fabric. All right, so I thrifted a shirt for the applique, purchased this for about $7. And then I need some other supplies, of course, for the applique. So we need some fusible web to fuse our letters in place. And Sulky has the most lightweight fusible web I have been able to find, and it's called Perfect Applique. And this happens to be our giveaway today for one lucky viewer who is watching, commenting, giving me those emojis. All you have to do is engage with the post in some way, and then you will be automatically eligible to win a 1-yard pack of Perfect Applique, courtesy of Sulky of America. All right. So this Perfect Applique, as I mentioned, is so lightweight, but also very strong. It's not going to change the hand of your shirt. See how movable this is? And it's going to move with my body. And I don't have these bulletproof letters on my t-shirt. Okay, very important. Also consider that when you're choosing the fabrics for your applique, so that you don't have, let's say, a heavier weight cotton or a canvas or something like that on your applique, because then when you go to move or raise your arms or something, you're going to have these blocks of letters just shifting around. That's why we call it bulletproof, right? So this Perfect Applique is super lightweight, very strong. You can hardly even tell when you've applied it to the fabric. That's how lightweight it is. We love that, right? So we need some of this. We also need some KK2000. So what I like to use this for is positioning my applique before I go and fuse it. So I can apply my fusible web, remove the paper backing, give it a light spray with the KK2000, and kind of audition it on my shirt. Okay? You can even, dare I say, try it on and make sure that the letters are looking good on your body, because sometimes when we position appliques and we're just looking at our shirt flat on our flat work surface, then we go and fuse it and we put it on and we accidentally have an applique right here. I'm not going to show you that, but you get the right idea. Or maybe it's positioned directly where our belly button is. Or maybe it's too high up on the shoulder and when we wear it, it looks weird. And that has to do with just the fact that our bodies are not like flat work surfaces, right? We have bumps and shoulders and shape to us, okay? So you can audition all of your letters and or other appliques. If you wanted to add a little flower or embellish this further and not just have the lettering on it, that's a good way to audition everything. Make sure you have it in the right spot where you want it. And then you can go ahead and fuse it after you get it all figured out. All right, Deb. Hey, Deb. She says, could the letters be felty? You know, I think that would be so cute. So sure. I mean, the felty isn't going to stretch with your body like this does. Like, see how I can just stretch it and my letters go with it, because my letters are also knit, right? Felty is not going to do that, but I think it would be less bulletproof than like a heavier weight cotton or something like that would be. So I say try it. It'd be super cute. I've done felty letters as machine embroidery applique in the hoop. But generally I would do that on like a heavier weight sweatshirt, something like that. So I guess it depends on how lightweight your shirt is to begin with. So I would just kind of take those things into account. All right. So of course we need some thread, right? And for mine, I used 50 weight cotton thread. My shirt is cotton. I'm going to match it with cotton thread. You may prefer to use a little bit heavier weight thread, like a 40 weight polyester. So our 40 weight poly deco thread is going to add a little bit more sheen and shine to it. You'll also be able to see it a little bit more. But for the 50 weight cotton, it just blends right in to the fabrics and very lightweight. So I used a 50 weight cotton that matched my applique fabrics in the needle. And then I used a 50 weight cotton that matched my t-shirt fabric for the bobbin. So that was my recipe. Now, what size needle are we using with the 50 weight cotton? 50 weight is a very lightweight thread, obviously not as lightweight as a 60 weight polyester or poly-light would be. I love it for this. So we are going to pair our 50 weight thread with a size 70-10 needle. So for this, you can use a jersey needle or a stretch needle because we're working with a knit. Knits are comprised with knitted threads, right? So they have a knitted structure like this, right? Woven fabric has weaves of threads as its structure. So for our jersey needle, what we need it to do is go in between the weaves of the structure of the shirt rather than piercing through them. So a jersey needle has a ball point to it that just pushes those fibers aside to make room for the thread. If we were using let's say a microtex or a top stitch needle that has a really nice point to it, that's going to create holes in the knit rather than opening up that weave structure to put the thread through it. Everyone with me? So a jersey needle is really what we want to use here, even for the applique, especially if you're using knit fabric for the applique. If you're going to use a different fabric for the applique, a woven fabric, like we were just discussing, then you want to go with a universal needle or maybe even a microtex needle. Microtex is going to have a slimmer, sharper point than a universal. I prefer the universal because it also has a slight ball point to it. Very slight. Very hard to tell. But it will work if you're using a woven fabric, maybe a fabric that has a looser weave to it, maybe a linen or something like this. But the size is 70-10. The size corresponds to the needle eye, how big that needle eye is. That's what the size is for. And that's what we're going to use when we use a 50 weight cotton thread. Okay? If you're going to use a 40 weight polydeco thread, so a little bit heavier weight thread, you want to go up to an 80-12 needle, size 80-12. All right. Okay, so once we have all of our materials for the shirt, you need to create your applique letters. So if you head to our Sulky blog post, you will find the letters that I used in a template that you can print out onto a sheet of paper. It's already mirror imaged and ready to go and ready to trace for your applique. But let's say you want your shirt to say something else. If you head on over to that blog post, which I linked directly to in the description of this post, I also did a version that says merci beaucoup. I also did a version that says muchas gracias. You can also say, hey there, right? You could say, soccer mom, something like this. So if you want to say something else, or maybe you prefer a different font that isn't so blocky like I used, then you can open up your word processing program and write out your phrase, size it how big you want your letters to be on your shirt. If you're making this for a toddler, let's say, obviously the letters need to be a little bit smaller than what you would use for an adult t-shirt. Okay, so I went into a word processing program. I wrote thanks a lot. I wanted it to fit on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, honestly, so that I wouldn't have to print off a bunch of pieces of paper. But also that was the right sort of size for me. I picked out a blocky font. I went in and kind of rounded the edges of the letters a little bit because I just liked the look of that. And in the Inspiration Designer $135 t-shirt, the letters are a little bit thicker for that applique, and honestly, it looks great. Also, those letters were satin stitched onto the t-shirt, probably by a machine, or, you know, a digitized design. At any rate, I liked the look of this, so that's what I went with. Then I mirrored the design. So when you head on over to the Sulky blog post, if you want to grab up this PDF and use it, it is linked in the blog post. And once you click on it, it will download to your computer and it will look like this. It will have the Sulky logo on it, and the images or the letters will already be mirror imaged. Very important that we are tracing the mirror image of this onto the paper side of our fusible web so that when we go and flip those letters over and fuse them to our shirt, they're oriented properly. All right. So that's what it's going to look like if you choose to make the shirt how I have made it. So we are going to take the paper side of our fusible web. We have our template underneath it, and you can trace all of those letters onto the paper side of the fusible web. All right. So once we have done that, then we're going to take that fusible web, rough cut it out like this, fuse it to the wrong side of our applique fabric. So you can see I used one of my daughter's really old Christmas t-shirts, and on the front of the t-shirt was a really cute little motif. Back of the t-shirt, nothing on it. Perfect scrap to use for my fabric. All right, once we fuse that, so a couple of tips for fusing fusible web. You want your iron on a low to medium heat setting because this is just our first fuse. We are then going to have a second fuse when we fuse it to the t-shirt. So we don't want to hit this with a super hot iron and have the fusible, which are like the little glue bubbles or whatever you want to call them. We don't want our fusible to get so hot that it kind of bubbles up and starts kind of spreading out, because then we've really melted it so much, and now we want it to fuse to our t-shirt. Okay, so now we might have a mess on our hands, we might have scorched our fabric, and the fusible might not want to adhere another time because essentially it's been like melted and burnt. So err on the side of caution. Put your iron on a low heat setting. If you feel like it's not fusing because the iron's too low, go up to a medium, but only put it on your fusible for a couple seconds and then just check it. We really just want it to be tacky at this point so that we can cut out our letters and then fuse it again. Okay. Suzanne is saying, can you use a heat press? That's a great question. So I don't have access to a heat press. I have used one before. And I do believe it has different heat settings. So potentially you could. I would do a little bit of a test though. I would take a little scrap of fusible web, little scrap of the fabric, and just see how it reacts in the heat press. And no steam on the heat press. And I would just do it for a small amount of time and check it kind of in increments. All right. Once we have our fusible all attached to our applique fabric, then we can start cutting out those letters. So you want really sharp scissors here to get into those little areas like in the A and the O, right? If you have a different phrase that you're using, obviously you will go with that. But you want really sharp scissors to get into those little areas and make sure they're nice and accurate. You don't want jagged little edges. I guess you could have jagged little edges if you decide to do a satin stitch and all of your raw edges will be concealed with the thread. But I did a raw edge applique. So you want your edges, if you're doing that, to be nice and straight. All right. So now we have all of our letters cut out, and you can remove the paper backing of the fusible web. You see how lightweight that fusible web is? You can barely tell that it's on there. All right. Once we have removed that, you can start positioning your letters on the t-shirt. This is where that KK2000 temporary spray adhesive really comes in handy, especially if you're arranging your letters on a flat work surface and then you've got to move your t-shirt over to your pressing surface, because these are small little delicate letters, in a knit no less. Also, that fusible applique, or the perfect applique fusible web, helps to stabilize your knit as well, so it doesn't curl up on the edges. So that's another bonus of using it, but of course we need it for applique in any case. All right, so we're going to make sure our letters are positioned where we want them using that temporary spray adhesive. And yes, once we start fusing the letters, the KK2000 will be gone. It will dissipate into the air, so you don't have to worry about that or about it gunking up your iron or anything, because it's on the wrong side of those applique letters. All right. Once you have it where you want it, maybe you've tried on the shirt just to make sure it's not too close to the side seam or too close to your shoulder seam, that type of thing. Then you do your second fuse. So now we're going to use that same temperature iron, low to medium heat, and gently fuse our letters in place onto the t-shirt. So for this, you can use a press cloth over the top, but you want to make sure your press cloth is one of those that you can kind of peel away. You're not using a piece of fabric or muslin as your press cloth, because if there's any fusible that has gotten out of the lines of your applique, then you'll end up fusing your press cloth to your t-shirt. So I didn't use one at all. I just went with my iron. You want to make sure to do an up and down motion with your iron and not a back and forth swooping motion. That's why we call it fusing rather than ironing. So if you're ever reading a sewing pattern and it says iron the fabrics, that means to go in a back and forth motion, ironing, getting all of the wrinkles out, getting into the corners, blah, blah, blah. When it says fusing, that means up and down motion with your iron, picking it up instead of swooping it across. Anytime we have a fusible like this, a fusible interfacing, a fusible stabilizer, a fusible web, you want to go up and down with your iron instead of back and forth. We don't want to shift any of our applique pieces with the movement of our iron, and we don't want to do anything with the fabric underneath, causing any puckering or wrinkles because we're sliding the iron across. Also, that's how you can get fusible to transfer to your iron sole plate, and we don't want that. All right, once all of our letters are fused, it's time to stitch them down. So I mentioned all the threads and needles that I was using. I used a regular standard presser foot here. If you have an applique presser foot that has a more open area in the front of the foot, you can use that, and that way you can really see how your stitches are being formed along the edges of your applique. I chose a simple straight stitch for this, and I just went right inside of all of my applique letters. But you can really choose any applique stitch you want. Maybe you want a decorative stitch. Maybe you want a wide zigzag stitch. Maybe you want a satin stitch like the Inspiration designer t-shirt. You can go with really any decorative stitch here. You could do a little wave stitch. If you are going to deviate from a straight stitch, I highly suggest test stitching on some scrap fabrics, using the same type of fabrics that you plan that your t-shirt is made of. So a scrap of knit fabric, maybe an old t-shirt that you have that you can just use to test stitches on. All right. So you will stitch, stitch, stitch. Now, depending on what your t-shirt is made of, how silky it is, how stretchy it is, right? We do not want any stretch when we are sewing our appliques on. So resist the urge to pull the fabric behind the presser foot. That is going to create ripples and waves in your knit fabric, okay? So no stretching whatsoever. And obviously, we have to pull the back of our shirt away from the stitching. So you might find that actually turning your shirt inside out and then focusing on one letter or one section of letters at a time, and then maneuvering your shirt so that you can access the other ones, that might be your best bet to make sure there's no puckering or stretching while you sew. You can also remove the accessory tray from your sewing machine so that you're sewing with the free arm. That way you can position the back of your fabric underneath the free arm and you have full access to the top of your shirt and can move it around without stretching or pulling. Okay, excuse me. Now that we have the sewing done, I was also going to mention, if you're finding that your shirt is a really lightweight knit, or maybe it has some rayon or elasticity to the structure of the knit, you might want to put some sulky stabilizer on the wrong side of your shirt while you're doing the applique. So if you're noticing that when you puncture through the knit with the needle, if it is sinking into the feed dogs, you'll need a stabilizer underneath. Sometimes that happens because just the fabric. It can happen because your needle might be too fat for the fabric weave. So it's kind of pushing the knit into the feed dogs rather than, going through it and creating those stitches. So if that is happening for you, place a piece of tearaway stabilizer or even a wash away stabilizer underneath your fabrics. Then when all of your stitching is done, you can either tear it away or wash it away in the washing machine or rinse it off. So options for that are sulky soften shear. Excuse me, that is not what I wanted to say, because soften shear is a cutaway stabilizer. Actually, you could probably use the soften shear and cut it away if you're using a more dense stitch for your applique. You could use soften shear. Soften shear would be cut away on the wrong side of the shirt though. I would come really, really close to the stitching lines to cut it away so that it only remains behind the stitches. But what was I trying to say? Fabrisolve. Thank you. So if you want to use a wash away stabilizer, you can put a piece of sulky Fabrisolve on the wrong side of the shirt. Fabrisolve is a wash away stabilizer that has the feel, or it looks like a lightweight fabric. So if you place that underneath, you can go in and cut it away, and then cut it away after your stitching is complete. And then you can throw it in the washing machine on like a rinse and spin cycle, or you can rinse it away in the kitchen sink, and then there will be no trace of it after your applique is done. But it will help stabilize that knit if you find that your needle is pushing it into the feed dogs. Okay, you can also use sulky tear easy stabilizer, which is a lightweight tearaway stabilizer. It just might be a little bit more difficult to tear it away inside of those little areas, like the little open area of the A and whatnot. But that can also work. All right. Once all of our stitching is complete on the shirt, we're all done. So here I am in a hotel. I wore this shirt when we went to the H&H show in Chicago, and super cute. I thought it was so appropriate to thank everyone as they came into the sulky booth. And of course I wanted to wear something that I had made. So looks a little bit cuter on our model here wearing the Thanks a Lot tee. You'll also see the other versions of this shirt in the sulky blog post with the Merci beaucoup and the Muchas Gracias versions. You can also, of course, deviate from this little curved shape and just do a straight up applique. um, in a horizontal orientation, or maybe you just want a little arch over the top of your shirt. So that's where the auditioning of your appliques is really the most fun part of making this shirt, aside from the sewing, in my opinion, because you can play around using that KK2000 and really get it into the shape and orientation that you want. You could do someone's name. You can do all kinds of things. Maybe you're having a family reunion this summer and you want to do matching t-shirts for everyone in the family. Maybe it says, March reunion, something like that on there. So you can really have fun with whatever you want to say, and whatever colors you want to go with. I went quite literal and did a complete designer dupe with our $135 shirt from Mother Denim. But of course, you could do a black shirt with some red applique. Mine, I feel like, is going to work great for 4th of July, for all the, patriotic holidays, because it's this red and blue. A timeless combination of colors. But maybe you have a t-shirt that has a little stain on it, but you love wearing it, so comfortable. Well, now you can cover up that stain and add a little phrase or another motif or something like that to it relatively easily. All right. Suzanne says, nice to know how to create your own when purchasing is so expensive. I mean, honestly, I was taken aback. I can't believe that shirt was originally $135. Now it's even saying sold out. So the fact that it's half price or whatever at $67.50 doesn't even matter because it's sold out. So in order to even have this shirt, we're forced to make it, which is great because it came together so easily. It's a very simple sew. And again, you get to have fun with all the arranging and, what you want to say. Nancy says, which kind of bobbin thread should I use for applique on knit fabric? So I would go with a lightweight thread, like a 50 weight cotton, or you can go with a 60 weight polyester, like our 60 weight poly light thread. That works great. You want a lightweight bobbin thread, even if you're going up to a 40 weight poly deco for the top thread. I would still go with a little bit lighter weight bobbin thread on the knit. All right. Oh, Jana says she just saw the shirt for $153. I mean, what's happening? I just can't believe it's a t-shirt. You know what I'm saying? Whew, goodness. All right. So yes, I did want to give you the final cost of my t-shirt was $11.53 or something like that. And I did kind of go in and say, how much fusible web of the 1 yard cut did I use? Very little, a small piece. So I have tons of leftover from that 1 yard pack to use for other things. And it's just a 1 yard pack of fusible web. I used, a whole spool of thread in the calculation of the cost. But I mean, how much thread are you possibly using for this, right? If you're using a satin stitch, obviously you're going to use a little bit more thread. So I calculated that whole spool in the cost. So t-shirt, fusible web, spool of thread, a little light spray of KK2000, and you're in it for less than 15 bucks. What can I say? And you're going out there looking like a designer fashionista in your designer t-shirt. Oh, I forgot to mention, so when I showed you the inspiration image, there was contrasting stitching. Actually, it wasn't even on the neckline. It was on the sleeve and the hem. So my sleeve has like an overlock, like cover stitch situation going on. This is just the factory hem of the sleeve of the t-shirt I bought. You could thread up your serger with a 30 weight blendables thread, 50 weight cotton threads, whatever, to match your applique and just go right over the top of the factory hem on your sleeve and lower edge of your shirt and add a little bit of pop of color there. I didn't do it, but the inspiration t-shirt definitely had that on there. If you don't have a serger or an overlock machine or a cover stitch machine, you could simply set your sewing machine for either an overcast stitch or a zigzag stitch and just go right over the top of your factory edge and add that cute little detail. And that's really going to take it to designer status and add another pop of color and bring in the whole design that you've done in the applique. So that's what you would want to do. Deb, I love your comment. She says that I love that you were like, what? Hold my shears and made your own. I think I need to make that into a sticker. Hold my shears. Love it. Oh, that's perfect. Yep, $11 for the t-shirt sounds great. It really depends, obviously, on the t-shirt that you buy. Because even on Amazon, at Target, at Walmart, blah, 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 these places, maybe you get a $5 t-shirt. Maybe you splurge on a $15 t-shirt because you prefer that style or you prefer that brand or what have you. Maybe you even have one in your closet right now that you can use for this, and then you don't have to invest any more money in the shirt itself. All right. So I'm just making sure that we've answered all of the questions. Sharon says, thanks for the details. You're welcome. Yvonne says, I use KK2000 for quilting and applique and love it. Can't be without it, so I always have an extra can on hand. Me too. I mean, what would we do without our KK2000? It is, I use it for so many things. All right. Oh, Esther, thank you for your comment. She says, I have a heat press and I think it would be too hot. So thank you for commenting for Suzanne there. That's why we come together here on So What. We can bounce our ideas off of each other. We can lend our experience to each other. I love that. All right. Let's see. Yep. Reusing clothing. Oh, hey, Colleen. Good to see you. Whenever I go through my kids' clothes, a lot of the times I just start throwing them in bags and then I head off to the thrift store or the donation center. And, all kinds of things can be used for fabrics and fusible appliques and, even, adding gussets into t-shirts and making them a little bit bigger or turning them into t-shirt quilts or t-shirt quilt type projects. I mean, I took one of my husband's well-loved sports t-shirts. I mean, it was falling apart at the seams. You guys probably remember this if you watch So What a lot. And I turned it into a laptop case for him. I added some foam interlining to it to give it some body. I quilted through it. And now he gets to see it every single day that he uses his computer. So that didn't end up in a landfill or I couldn't possibly even donate it. That's how destroyed it was. So think about those things. I wanted to mention too, you guys. So I know we've talked about the closure of Joann's. I had to go on the final day just to check it out because I'm still mourning that loss. And my Joann's fabric store, the last day was Saturday. And here is my last Joann receipt ever. I mean, it's a sad day. So as these places are closing, I really encourage you to seek out independent fabric stores, independent retailers, reuse things like t-shirts, dive into your fabric stashes, do all the things, but most of all, keep those independent retailers going. Patronize those stores. Patronize? Not sure if that was the right word to use. Anyway, I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that today. All right. It is sad. It is sad, Sharon. Okay. Esther says, I always have to hem t-shirts because I'm vertically challenged. That's another, great point of making a shirt your own, buying a less expensive t-shirt and then hemming it. Maybe you hate necklines on t-shirts. Cut it off. Roll it in your fingers. It'll roll to the wrong side or right side. It'll roll to the right side. And it adds another detail to it. Add a little row of hand stitching there, something like that to make it your own. So there's always options with t-shirts. All right. Well, thank you all for joining me today. Wait, hold on. Thanks a lot for joining me today. And I hope that you're inspired to create your own designer t-shirt for way less, saving yourself some money, having a stylish start to your summer, all the things. So make sure to tune in next Tuesday for another So What. Make sure to register for our summer sewing session. This is the first summer sewing session of the season. So many S's. And you'll learn how to make this designer wallet and a companion e-reader / tablet keeper. And this is a video session with lots and lots of video tutorials, patterns you can download once the session is available, all kinds of things in beautiful cork. So you can have your designer t-shirt, you can have your designer travel set, which is really just a wallet and tablet keeper. You don't have to travel with it, but if you want to, you can travel with me and head to Greece in 2026, or you can travel with me and head to Germany and Austria this holiday season in December. So thanks again for joining me, and I'll see you next Tuesday for another So What.